You know, you became a man at the 99th Street Park. Go.
Oh, so yes, when I became a man, because well, first of all, it was the first place that I was really hanging out with girls, and girls that I was attracted to, and yeah, my romance fantasies, of course, took off at that point, and the music of that day, so many songs I used to either would make me cry, or I would sing them and try to sing them to Rosa or Julie, and yeah, I guess when I say
Julie Battleship?
Julie Balasek, and yeah, when I talk about say becoming a man, I mean, again, other than having lost my virginity, I think it was the first time that I was really kind of independent from my family, and able to just basically do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. And you know, aside from getting into drugs and fucking tripping on acid and starting to, you know, get into disco music and got really into handball and then paddleball, and really everybody there was older than me. And so I kind, you know, that was another part of it, was just being around people that I saw as men, and like was mentioned by our videographer, when I first started hanging out at 99th Street, I was on 99th, talking with some people, getting high, and Ralph Pooh and Gwen came walking down very fast from the New Park down 99th to where we were at the stoop of like 216, and we were like, "What's going on?" It was me and Tacky and I forget who else, and they were like, "Victor and Veronica just got stabbed," and we were like, "Whoa!" So we all ran up to the park, and I think by then the cop cars were there, and I think one of them was already on their way to the hospital, and I think Veronica was just getting shoved into a police car to get up to St. Luke's, and yeah, they were both in the hospital for weeks and touch and go, and they had surgeries. I think Veronica, and the guy who stabbed them, we knew, he was actually a member of the gang that Tacky was in, the Satan's Warriors, which was like the youth version of the Kings of Darkness that Ralph was in. And I knew most of those guys in the Satan's Warriors, and yeah, and Carlito was one of them, and he apparently had stabbed Victor. I don't know what started the fight, but he stabbed Victor, and then Veronica tried to jump in, and he stabbed her. And when he stabbed her, he went in and up with the knife, and it was like some little, I forget what knife it was, but it was some small knife, like a Swiss Army knife or something. And then he took off, and yeah, it was a big deal, needless to say. And but they both recovered, and they were both fine eventually. And they're yeah, just now I'm trying to think. I'm not sure I have much more like memory of why I say I became a man there, other than I was getting older. I was becoming independent as a young man, okay. And I felt like a young man and not a kid. Okay. And all the people I hung out with, of course, you know, they were part of that. They gave me confidence. They, you know, whatever. And
is there anything else you wanted to add on the loft dance drug scene?
I mean,
and what time periods were these?
So I started going to the loft early '77. Went to the garage the first time in the fall of '77. Then I went to the garage every week until probably, well, when they reopened. They reopened in February of '78. That's when the new room was done, and now they had a logo and the official name, the Paradise Garage. I still have the letter where they sent me my membership. This club is now known as the Paradise Garage. Mm-hmm.
And that was what, yeah.
So that was early '78. I went to the garage regularly till probably sometime later in '79, and the loft I was going to most weeks also, and and then I kind of just, the garage had become way too big for me. It was, once the big room opened, the crowd, when it first opened, it was still great. I mean, Cisco and I just had such blasts there. I remember one time they were playing this one song by Voyage that sounds like a kind of a Scottish jig of some sort, and Cisco and I broke out into this fucking, arm around, grab your partner, like that, dancing around each other's arms, and everybody around us started doing the same thing. It was great. It was still a great party, but at some point it started getting too crowded, and especially on Friday nights, straight night or mixed night, it was attracting a lot of young straight guys that were looking to pick up women, and it just changed the flavor entirely for me. It no longer had that feel of a house party that's just everyone's friendly and loves each other, and it just became more of a hardcore thing. And so I slowly started, I kept my membership until mid '80s, but I only went a few times after that. And actually, that's why Ian and Chris wanted to hook me up with Claudia, because Claudia apparently had gone to the garage, but she had gone much later than she had gone in the later years, and anyway, when I met Claudia, I met Edel at the same time. So,
how did you transition to the next phase of your life?
So, I started working at Mellon's West in 1980. And I was still going to the loft regularly.
What were you doing there?
I was a waiter, trained by my sister Gwen, the best waitress. No, this was West, Mellon's West on Amsterdam and 76th. And I had been working at Gristedes supermarket for a couple years almost. But I had worked at the one on 68th and I guess it was Amsterdam 10th maybe. I forget. But that was a really great period too, because I got the job because two of the guys from 99th worked there, and they got me a job, and then a couple other, it was Jesus' brother Charlie, David's brother Johnny, me, who else? There was somebody else also that, anyway, we had a blast, and I would stock shelves, I would do the register, I would go do deliveries, and of course I love doing deliveries because I'd go out and get stoned, and then come back, and I used to, when I was on the register, I used to pocket cash out of that register, and I never got caught. And but then the assistant manager of that Gristedes thought that I was wasting my life as a stock boy. He said, "You're too smart for this, blah, blah, blah." He got me transferred to a Gristedes on the east side where I was going to work in the meat department. So I was going to make more money packaging up the meat. And I was so devastated that it's like, you're making me leave my friends and this job I love. And after a week I quit. And that's when I went and, I guess I didn't go right to Mellon's. I was a busboy at the Ginger Man for a while, for like over a year.
Where was the
Ginger Man? Was in Lincoln Center. It's kind of a white tablecloth. They catered to, basically, Lincoln Center has, operas and dance and all that. So it catered to those crowds. And it was, and that's the time, the timing of when there were matinees and night shows. That's when it was really busy. And I enjoyed working there. But then at some point, Gwen told me that there was an opening at Mellon's West. And so I went up and interviewed, and that's when my real waiting career began. And very shortly thereafter, there was a girl that worked there named Christy. And Christy and I hooked up. And that's when I kind of started going to the loft a lot less. And eventually moved in with Christy. And there's some stuff I think I'm going to best to leave out of here, just in case certain people see this. So yeah, we started working at Mellon's, which is also, that's when I started drinking coffee, and that's when I started drinking any alcohol whatsoever. I was never into alcohol, but you know, I'd have a drink there, and
So how'd you get into technology?
so in the early when I was living with Christy on 91st Street, I had always been into, of course, music, and so stereos were such a thing for me. In fact, flashing back into the mid-'70s, Cisco and I used to walk up to 112th Street in Broadway where there was a high-end stereo store called Tech Hi-Fi. And we used to just browse in that store for hours and oogle shit and talk about, yeah, this is what my system's gonna be. And they used to have these really nice glossy catalogs of all their equipment. And so we both had our catalog, and we'd be marking up pages, and oh well, we need $18,000 or whatever. Nothing ever, of course, came from it. But I was always into, and when I